What's up, YouTube do-it-yourselfers? It's Josh Mall, the voice for Swimming Pool Science, and today we're getting us away from swimming pools just a little bit. We're up here at my house in Colorado that my wife and I just purchased. No, not with YouTube money, with midwife money. She's making the big bucks now, so we can afford this place. It's a work in progress. It's pretty cool. You know, we love old stuff. We love antiques so much, we wanted to live in one. So this is our project. I thought today I would show you how to install a USB outlet. Now, as you guys know, USB plugs are very popular with a lot of devices, and I know you guys always find yourselves from time to time running out of adapters and things to plug in and switching things around, running out of outlets. So the USB adapter plug is a great solution to this, and it's a simple thing you can do with just a few tools and just a couple parts. So let's get started. First, you kill the power by shutting off the correct breaker. Now, don't assume that just because you flipped the breaker that was marked bedroom that you got the right breaker. Always double check. Yeah, we're still hot here. Back to the breaker box. Now, I normally have a couple different electrical testers and meters, but somehow they got lost in the shuffle, so I got to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to go shut off breakers until I come back in the bedroom and that lamp is off. Then I'll know the power's dead. Looks like it's lights out. We're ready to rock and roll because we got the power killed. Now, before we get started, guys, I want to remind you, while this is probably the most basic electrical repair you can do, you are getting into the electrical system in your house, and it's going to be crucially important to follow some key steps. And if you're uncomfortable doing this in any way, shape, or form, it might be best to just call in an electrician, because then you have the peace of mind to know that it's done exactly right. So once again, like I said, I'm going to go through this step by step and show you each step. But if you're not comfortable, don't touch it. Just call a licensed electrician. Here are the tools we will be using: a pair of needle nose pliers, a pair of electrical pliers, a Phillips screwdriver, and a flathead screwdriver. And that is about what it takes to get the job done. All right, first step is to remove the standard switch plate cover. Pretty simple. I got one center screw, comes off just like that. That guy hole comes off, out of the way. Now, once again, on this old outlet, we just have flathead screws holding the receptacle in place. On a newer style one, you're gonna probably have, it's gonna be like a slot Phillips, so you could use a flathead or a Phillips. On those, I like to stick with a Phillips because it just bites better, and when we install our new USB receptacle, we will then go to our Phillips screw. Now, I wanna show you something here, and this is kind of important. As I pull this out, I notice one thing, and this is crucial for here, because if you look in here, this is an old metal box. Keep in mind, the house we are doing this in is 114 years old. The wiring overall is good in this house. I've looked it over. I've had my contractor look it over. That's doing all of our major stuff. But right here, what I like to do every time I put an outlet away is I screw these screws in. And the reason I do that is because it's real easy for this hot side screw, if the other one was undone, to touch against the box, spark, arc, constantly trip the breaker and be a super inconvenience, or at worst, start a fire in the house. So it's always important that we always make sure that even all of our screws, even our unused screws, are screwed in, and this one over here is pretty much screwed in out of the way, so that's important to do. So this guy right here, let's turn this sideways so you can have a look, because this is the part where we're going to disconnect. All right, so I got a little closer up here so you can see what's going on. Now, our black wire here, you see this black wire, that is our hot wire. That's the source of the electricity. And effectively, our white wire here, that's our common wire. That is what lets the electricity go somewhere after it has passed through the outlet, gone through our lamp or whatever we have plugged in here. And then we also have our ground here, and the ground's job is to remove any kind of charge that comes onto this receptacle. So now, light switches have these, time clocks have these. Any receptacle that's directly wired to power is going to have a ground clamp, and it is key and it is important that that gets connected. So we'll just start with that first. Unscrew our ground clamp. And if you look right in there, let's see if I can pull that over a little closer. You can see our wire super tight around here. So I'm going to pull out my needle nose pliers, and we're going to loosen that up. And sometimes what you can do is you can get the pliers in here and spread the wires out. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you can grab the end and peel it open. Sometimes you can grab this other side and break it open like that. But let's see here. Sometimes it's just everything's different. You kind of develop your own technique. So the ground wire is a bare wire, and not to worry. It's not, it's what I would call a passive wire. It's not like our hot wire, which is the source of our electricity. But I'm going to leave this little hook on it because that hook is going to come in handy later. So I'll set that right there out of the way. And because my power is off, see, if my power wasn't off and I was touching that black wire right now, like that, if I was touching that screw, I'd be getting jolts of electricity and I would not be so calm. I'll get this guy off like that. It's going to be pretty much the same situation. And we want to be careful when we're using our pliers not to damage the insulation on the wire. The insulation is this black outside part, and this is what keeps the electricity inside from, say, touching the side of the box or arcing with something and causing a fire. This is number 14 wire here. It's pretty small. Now, on some boxes, this wire terminates to this box, meaning this is the end. Think about a dead end on a road or a cul-de-sac. Now, sometimes what you'll have is where these boxes are, it's a junction box as well. So you'll open it up and you'll have some wire nuts where the wires join two wires, and then there'll be a third wire that comes out. So imagine my fingers here are the two wires, and then you have a third wire coming out that you would connect to this outlet. Or sometimes, as you can see, there's two sets of terminals on here. So one set of wires, your black and your white, would connect on the bottom. Then your other set of wires, black and white, would connect at the top. So it would be whites and whites on the common side, blacks and blacks on the hot side. And that allows your receptacle to act as the junction point, or say the wire nuts. Typically what we like to do is we like to wire nut those back so we know that the connection is secure, and that way this receptacle isn't a junction point, and then we throw a third wire out of our wire nuts that would then connect to these. So just something to consider, but like I said, we want to be careful of our insulation on our wires, not to damage it, especially if you don't have a lot of wire. Fortunately, we got a fair amount of extra wire sticking out on these guys. Okay, that's out, and what I'll do is I got a nice hook here, a nice hook there. But I'll pull this hook out straight so I can kind of show you a trick if you ever need to. Now, sometimes you may have to cut this wire back. Well, that's real easy. I'll do that. I'll cut a little wire off so you can see if you do have to do that. I've got these electrical pliers. Now, in a pinch, you could use a set of needle nose pliers. This needle nose set right here has the cutter right here, so I can cut wire if I want to, like so. I can actually cut a little bit of wire off, but when I want to strip back my insulation, it's a little trickier. This guy has the cutter, and it's got these little holes that are different gauges of the wire, so they can easily strip away the insulation. So that's just a matter of, say I had to cut this wire, we cut it back, we can cut it back as far as we need to, and then I can come back here to my number 14 hole because I know this is number 14 wire, and I strip that insulation back, and I strip it back just enough so that the wire makes good contact with my screw. I don't want to strip it way back because then now I have exposed wire that could cause a problem once I cram these wires back in the box, and you'll see what I mean here momentarily. So here is my USB outlet. I picked this up at my local hardware store. You can find these online, and I'll actually put a link down in the description below where you can get some of these parts and even some of these tools if you want to make it real easy. But you can see the size difference. Look how much bigger this Decora style USB outlet is compared to the old standard style outlet. There's a big size difference, but this guy will still fit in the box. But we're going to need to do make sure our wires are neat and orderly when we put this all back together. There's the old switch plate cover. Here's the new switch plate cover. But what's great about this is I can plug 2 different devices into here. Plus I've got my USB ports. I can get 4 things going at once. I can have my lamp going, my laptop charging up. I can have my my Garmin cycle computer charging while I got my phone plugged in, and I'm looking at videos on the internet, on YouTube, not on any other sites. Come on, guys, get your minds out of the gutter. So this just gives you kind of an idea on the size difference. And so we're gonna have a little bit of trouble. I won't say a lot of trouble, but we may have some difficulties shoehorning this guy into this old metal electrical box with the wires, but I think it's all gonna fit. All right, before we get started, guys, I will show you a couple differences on this. The old one, you really have to, in order to get to fasten it properly, the wire has to be looped in the direction that the screw screws in. So if you notice here on this side, when I screw it in, we're going clockwise, right? So my loop would have to go from the top and loop around toward the bottom, so that that loop of wire gets tightened around the screw. If it's the other way, then while I'm tightening it, we're actually loosening that loop and it can come undone. On the other side, same deal, but my wire comes in from the bottom and loops around on the top in order to tighten that up. So that's going to be important. If the one that you guys buy or install, you have to loop the wire around, that wire's got to be looped, and it's got to be looped in the direction so that when you're tightening your screw down, it will tighten that loop or pull that loop in tighter. Same goes for our ground wire over here. Now, on this guy right here, we have got these nice little plates, which if I can get the light just right, I'll show you that. You can see right inside there, right in there, the little plate. And if you watch, that plate comes down. So you put the wire underneath that little plate, and then you screw the screw down, and there's 2 slots there. There is a bottom slot and a top slot. So the wire just has to go straight in. It doesn't need to be looped, and you can actually put 2 wires on this and use this as a junction point. So just to kind of give you a demonstration, if I were to slide this common in like that, it slides right in nice like that. And then I can then screw the screw in. And what that plate does is it doesn't have the screw, it keeps the screw from twisting against the wire and pulling it in the wrong direction. Remember, hot equals black. Hot always equals black. So let's get that going here. Take our thing out, and you hold it like this. You can slide that right in. Now, I have a little bit of extra wire sticking out, so I could actually probably trim off just a little piece of that. Now, another thing to remember is on the soft copper wire is that if you're twisting it and bending it around too much, you'll snap off the end, and you may need to trim that back. So try not to be twisting and bending that around. So once again, black goes to the hot side. So we're going to go in right there like that. And then we're going to make sure we get a nice snug connection. We're not going to bend and break everything, but the problem is if we do not get a nice snug connection, then we will have a loose wire. And a loose wire means added resistance. Added resistance means heat. Heat can sometimes, added resistance and gaps means sparks. That's how the spark plugs in your car work. And that can cause fires or cause damage or cause a breaker to trip constantly. So something to consider. We want to make sure that's a good snug connection there. And moving to our ground. Ground goes in the same way, slides right in on this one, super easy. Tighten that up. Sorry about the lighting, guys, but you get the picture. that. Make sure that's good. All right, we got snug connections. Now it's a matter of sliding this bad Larry back in the box. Now this wire, if I'm trying to jam it in, do this, the wire gets everywhere. That doesn't work so hot, does it? All right, wires everywhere like spaghetti. So we want to bend these wires a little bit. If you notice inside the box, my wire comes in from the top. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put a little bend going up like this. So all my wires are going to kind of do like an S bend like this, so that they kind of go in and act like an accordion. So when I put these guys in, I can carefully nestle that in. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh no. I gotta get rid of some of that junk right there. Sometimes the plaster or the drywall will overlap and blob inside the box. You gotta move that. Not a big deal. And then that guy will slide right in. Now from here, it's just really a matter of lining our screws up, sliding that box in, and screwing our screws in with the right screwdriver. Phillips screwdriver is what I want. And I'll get the top one going a little bit. All right, I got my top one in, just a few turns in. I'll get our bottom one lined up. Screw in a little bit. And what I like to do, we don't ever want to force anything, is I'll turn the bottom one a little bit, get the top one a little bit, and I can even use my screwdriver to just give a little bit of pressure and nudge that back, and all I'm doing is just making sure that my wires are going to be compressed enough that this goes in nice and neatly. But wiring, getting the wires in place is kind of key. You want to make sure you get those back in the box neatly. And we want to make sure as we're doing that, we're not loosening up any connections. So that's a good time to check any kind of wire nuts that might be in the box. Make sure nothing's loose and everything's good. So, you know, like I said, this being an older house, outlet's going to poke and protrude out a little bit. That's all right, because some of these boxes, when we go to remodel, we are going to do new ones. And now, if you look down through the top, sometimes these guys want to sit a little bit crooked. And that can be tricky because you might have wires pushing against the back of the box on one side and not the other, so this thing will sit a little bit sideways. So you're gonna have to play around a little bit and just, you know, you may have to pull it in or pull it out, put it back in, pull it out, put it back in until you get it where you want it. You want to be careful. We don't want to scratch this thing, so if I have like the back side of my insulated tool and kind of put a little bit of extra pressure on one side like this, to get it to where it straightens out a little bit and it looks nice and pretty. I've got a little bit of, if you can see right here, I've got a little bit of lateral movement there, and with a larger box I can kind of use that to make sure that my my outlet is in fact straight up and down. Easy peasy. This guy goes on. Mine is a smidge crooked. As you YouTube armchair quarterbacks can probably already tell, but you know what? I don't care. This isn't my bedroom. This is the guest bedroom. Sometimes you might have to finagle a little bit to get the screws to line up properly. But when you do put the screws in, careful not to mark them up because they're already painted white. And when you do, look at the way I marked that screw up. So I'm showing you how not to do it. I'll get these screws in just like that. And we always put our screw slots straight up and down. Get this top one here. Sometimes if you can't screw it all the way, there we go. All right, that guy's in. Let's go turn our power on and test it out. Oh, Jesus. All right, flipping on breakers here. One of these three powers that bedroom. Let's go try this thing out. Into our guest bedroom, and let's give it the old test run. Plug in our lamp, flip it the other way, plug it in. We got juice there. How about here? Plug in the Garmin, charging up. Test our cell phone. Obviously the dog is working. It's fluffy. And boom. We've got ourselves a nice, much cleaner setup than the old thing with a lot more place to plug things into. Guys, there's probably going to be a few more how-to videos like this. I promise I won't turn swimming pool science into this old house, even though I'm living in this old house. But I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate all the support. Don't forget, like, share, and subscribe if you do want to support the channel, and we will see you on the next video. Hello, Albert.
No. See the cars? We're going to. Where?
Albert.
We don't know.
Yeah. And we lost him.